Hello and welcome to After School Special, the Miss Marvel reaction show from the Comic Crush. I am Paul, your host, as always. Liz is going to be joining us in just a second. You can find us, as always, on this channel at the Comic Crush website and on the podcast. Hopefully, some of you are listening to that, and I do just want to say hello to everyone who is listening. I think we're going to get Liz on. Hello, Liz. How are you?
Hello. Doing well. Yourself?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got COVID at the moment, so that's a bit of a downer. Second or third go around for me. Yeah. Thumbs down from me.
Yeah,
9 out of 10 wouldn't COVID again, but I probably will. Yeah. So unfortunately, I do have COVID again. I am a bit throaty today. Thank you for everyone who's actually kind of messaged me and sent sort of well wishes. It was really, really kind of you guys. I am doing okay, and ultimately not on a respirator in a hospital, which is the important thing and why you should get yourself vaccinated. Liz, you've managed to avoid COVID so far, haven't you?
Yeah, completely.
Well done, I am actually glad. Like it's a horrible thing, and I'm really glad that people have managed to avoid it. One thing we can't avoid though is the MCU. Every week, bang in our faces. More and more interesting MCU news coming out this week. You and I will maybe talk about that at the end of the show, but we are, of course, here to talk about this week's episode of Miss Marvel. Another exciting episode. I'm really enjoying. This is the thing. I always think, like, I have this trouble sometimes when I'm writing reviews, which is, if I really freaking enjoyed something, I don't necessarily have much to kind of say to people in terms of commentary or insight. You probably will, though, because you're, of course, much more clued into the Marvel world than I am. As we knew this week, things are completely upended, and we've gone from New Jersey to Karachi. How did you enjoy this week's episode, Liz?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was really cool. It was really cool to see Kamala in, like, sort of her familial homeland. It was really cool to get a glimpse. And I'm curious. I don't know. So maybe you might have, read something. Where were these scenes filmed?
I don't know, but I'm assuming they actually did go to Karachi for it.
Yeah, that is something I'd like to check out. I'll give it a Google after we finish up. But
yeah, sorry, should have really done that before. My fault. But I suspect that with the kind of, I mean, obviously we know that a ton of the MCU is filmed in Atlanta, Georgia, largely because of the tax breaks they get there, and I think they have a really good relationship with the Georgian state unions and stuff like that, and I think they actually have a film studio there, and it might be, I wonder if it's Tyler Perry's. Isn't Tyler Perry's film studio in Atlanta? I think I could be wrong. Yeah, so Tyler Perry, as you may or may not know, built a huge film studio in the US, one of the first new film studios in years, I think. Do you know, I've just realised that I've picked a T-shirt that's exactly the same colour as the walls in my room today. Yeah, right. Sorry guys, that was a bit stupid. It's a good thing we're not using any kind of special effects, other than Liz, of course, for this episode, because I would just be a floating head. So yeah, I think there's a film studio in Atlanta, Georgia. I think that's Tyler Perry Film Studio. I could be wrong. If anyone knows, zap us a comment in the box. But yes, I think the Karachi scenes were actually filmed in Karachi.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Right. Well, it's if it was a set, it was a really fantastic set. Everything looked so cool. And yeah, it really kind of brought you into this different culture. With Kamala, who had never traveled there before.
Yeah. I've never been, look, I haven't been to a ton of places, but I've never been to India. I probably will never go to India or Pakistan, largely because of I think the heat would just kill me.
Well, it's killing Kamala, like, you know, as we say,
which is great. I love
really early
love
on, which I thought was hilarious.
Not
just the heat outside, but also the food.
Oh yeah. See, now I think I'd have a lot of trouble with things like that. As much as I would love to see the country and the architecture and experience the kind of music and everything, because it's something I want to talk about today again, the music in the show. Steph has actually been to India because her cousin got married out there, and she's actually spent a bit of time there. Although I don't know how she managed, because she's not a person that can handle muggy, hot weather either.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not great with that at all.
We're just such pale-skinned whiteys. We just can't do it, man.
Right. It's too much for me.
But yeah, I mean, I think this whole series has been like a kind of interesting, and it's not a clash of cultures. It's, I mean, there is a clash of cultures, which we'll talk about, but it's more of a kind of intermingling and meeting of cultures that I really love. Yeah. And I think obviously the real clash of cultures comes between the clandestines and the humans, you know, and Kamala and their different outlooks. But I think the show is very much about cultures melding rather than kind of clashing, and I really like that about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a ton of that in this week's episode, and how even people from the same culture can have differences,
right?
In terms of their outlook and how they, you know, like Kamala with the food, which really you think she would be, you're kind of used to.
Which she, but as it turns out, like the food there is different to even, you know, the, you know, Americanized versions of the same kind of cooking. So like, you know, it's interesting to see her sort of, you know, transported into, you know, you know, where her family have originated. And, you know, so she kind of feels like an outsider, you know, back in New Jersey because of her culture. But when she gets to Pakistan, she feels like an outsider because of her American, you know, roots. So,
Canadian. She could be Canadian.
Well, yeah, that's like a little joke, isn't it? Like, you know, because of Milani is Canadian.
I really loved the kind of energy of the episode. Also, it's weird because it's the first episode that's not built around a sort of big family event, but it's instead the towards the end you get this much smaller event, which is the kind of get together on the beach, which I loved. So I thought it was really a kind of nice way to negate the formula that it already set out in the episode. Whenever I think of food in India now, or Pakistan, I think of, there's a movie called The Lunchbox, which is about a guy who works in an office, but he's kind of disillusioned and he's reaching his retirement. And there's this thing in India and Pakistan where like women will make their husbands lunches at home and then give it to like a courier service who will drop it off at their offices. Right. So, and this is like a big business, and he gets the wrong lunch one day, like this food that he kind of absolutely adores and loves and wasn't expecting, and like he meets the woman and they fall in love, and it's a beautiful movie. I invite you to go see it, but I always think of that. And I think there's this thing in Pakistan, India, of food on the move, constantly on the go, because the city is constantly on the go, the country is constantly on the go. It's always kind of evolving and moving. And I know, again, in talking about, I've got to go to India. Sorry to talk about this because this is what I've read about, and so sorry if it's conflicting, you know, countries and things. But there's that whole thing that Danny Boyle talked about when he was making Slumdog Millionaire, of the book he read, where it was described, where, you know, Mumbai was described as the maximum city. And I felt, in a way, the culture that Kamala goes over to was a maximum culture, you know, except it's not necessarily in terms of there being too many people on the streets and too much coming at you. it's in terms of the color and the music and the food and all that instead. And it was really nice. And I loved those kind of scenes where she's walking through the market and just the colors and the vehicles and everything you get there. So I mean, yeah, I love this episode, as I've loved all of them.
Yeah, but it's this is kind of like that point we reach in Moon Knight when he goes to Egypt. It's kind of like, okay, this is where we're going to kind of see the full breadth of her culture and background, and also get into some of the lore behind her powered origins.
Yes, which is good stuff. Now the Red Daggers, they have their roots in the comics. Am I right?
Yes, so they do, but it's kind of tweaked here because in the comic, I don't think that they have any kind of connection to the Norse Dimension. I mean, obviously, this Norse Dimension stuff is kind of like as far as I can tell, it's an invention for the show. And so I don't think Kareem or you call him Chemo for short, like I don't think he has any kind of powers per se. I think in the comics, I think he just has he's just really well trained sort of warrior. Which here it kind of implies that he does have some sort of power because he senses her connection to the Norse universe. So that would kind of lead me to believe, even though they haven't said one way or the other, I don't think that he has his own connection to it. He has some sort of power.
Yeah, like they do seem to be. I mean, they're all incredibly adept at sort of combat and stuff like that. And they seem to have. Chemo seems to have a never-ending supply of knives. So I wonder if he's kind of pulling that stuff almost from the ether, the way like the clandestines are kind of. They have weapons that sort of unfold, and they kind of pulled out from magic, and or is it that they can take things that are sort of similar size and shape to the weapons they would use, and they become the weapons they have? I vaguely remember from the earlier episodes. Yeah, I don't know. I'm unsure. As always, I watch this stuff and then I instantly forget it. I'm old. What can I tell you? But the Norse stuff was super fascinating this week. One thing that struck me in looking at the kind of representations that they pull up in about the Norse Dimension was how much it looked like the vibranium kind of stuff from Black Panther in places. Like you see that kind of where it kind of reshapes the particles into an actual model and stuff like that. But also, I'm wondering, is the Norse Dimension one of the 9 realms?
Well, I mean, that sounds quite plausible. I mean, it's not one of the traditional 9 realms, unless, it's like, okay, they call it the Norse Dimension and Thor would call it something else,
Right. And because he does talk about Thor in this, he says, if Thor dropped down onto the Himalayan mountain, he'd be considered
called a djinn. Yeah. So in a way, you could kind of conjecture that maybe yes, the Norse Dimension is one of the 9 realms. So but they haven't explained that in any kind of clear way.
I'm just badly hypothesizing, I'm sure. But I really love this kind of notion that there's this other dimension sitting right on top, which again leads us to the kind of multiverse of madness stuff. We're kind of knee deep in that again,
right? Which we all of the Disney Plus shows have kind of added their own little contribution to that, except for maybe Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yes,
but literally every other one has kind of lent something to that idea that there are kind of other dimensions, other timelines, variants, etc. That and all of that seems to be playing into something bigger. So I think this is probably a very is connected to all of that.
Yeah. And you know, for all we know, the Norse Dimension might have been one of the dimensions that Strange zaps through when he's with America, and he's little when they take that quick kind of
right. Well, we just see there's so many. You know, the multiverse is vast, and
sure. So over 600 universes.
Right. So we've got, you know, plenty of back doors for the X-Men and the Fantastic Four to come through, basically.
And it does lead to a couple of things I want to talk about towards the end, but we'll get to it. So you know, finding out a bit more about Kamala's history in this episode through her grandmother, who knows and accepts and understands that yes, we are these sort of different beings.
Yes, whereas her mother very much doesn't, because it seems like Nani has told her mother, you know, yes, this is you know, because her, you know, Kamala's mom, you know, has a conversation with Nani saying, oh, why do you keep talking about all these fantastic, strange things? You know, I wanted just a mother, and you know, instead, you know, just filled my head with all these fantasies, etc. So it seems like she tried to impart the information to Muniba, Kamala's mom, but instead she, you know, had to wait for Kamala to be receptive to the idea.
Yeah, and of course Kamala's getting it kind of in 3D, you know, with the visions and everything. It was weird. Like, I found that scene at the beginning on the plane sort of quasi unnecessary, but I did like the kind of byplay between Muniba and Kamala over, you know, am I still grounded technically?
Right. I think, you know, I think that was perfectly fine kind of way to you know, kind of sum up, like, well, yeah, so she is still in trouble, but her mom is going to take her, you know, because at the end of the last episode, I was like, oh, how's she going to convince, you know, her parents to let her go? And
we're kind of shorn of a lot of the family attachments this episode, and you know, which is kind of interesting, because I actually really like, as I think I said last week, I really loved the family stuff, and Nakia and Bruno, you know, so all missed this week, but not because you have all these other great characters coming in. And I like the idea of, you know, traveling back through the history of a country in order to discover your own history and stuff like that, which is kind of brought very much into focus on the train station in that first sequence. And you know, having to deal with those things, like the kind of really terrible things that happened during partition and all of that stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And moreover, the chase sequence was one of the more inventive and sort of fun things that I'd seen in a long while. Like, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that was, you know. I liked, there were two really great action scenes that kind of like stood out to me this episode, which was the chase sequence with the Jinn at the end, and the sort of meeting between Kamala and Chemo, you know, Red Dagger, at the train station, you know, where he's sort of the two of them kind of they're fighting, but not really. It's more of a kind of almost playful back and forth. To an extent, which I really like that too.
And of course another food connection, because the entranceway to the Red Dagger's hideout is through the oven, which I thought was great. You know, I think there's still a lot to come. I like. Do we want to talk about the ending yet, like the very end of the episode, or do you have some more stuff you want to go through?
I mean, I like the you know, while we're still on the same thing, I like the fact that now she's got this like third sort of perspective, like, you know, kind of love interest now.
Yeah. Oh man, like
You know, like it's so.
she's managed to make her triangle a square.
I mean, yeah, it's well, yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's like, oh, another boy that, like, you know, seems like he's kind of interested, and she seems kind of interested, and
yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's going to come down to like a sort of three-way fight between him, Bruno, and
oh yeah,
Cameron.
Bruno, he doesn't have a chance, you know.
Oh man, Bruno's the one.
If it's a physical fight, you know, he's got like deadly assassin and like you know, Norse Dimension related clandestine, you know.
Also, I do want to find out if the ABCD Instagram is a real thing. I haven't checked yet. The American.
I mean, yeah, they're missing a trick. They're absolutely missing a trick if they haven't made one for Kamala.
I thought it was absolutely gold. I don't know if it's real. Should we find out if American-born confused Desi is a real Instagram? We're going to do it now.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure. You know, I won't be surprised.
No one else does this live on air, folks.
Perhaps for good reason.
I just want to see. So, Liz.
Yeah.
It is a real Insta account.
That's hilarious.
So, but it looks like it's a digital creator. I guess they produce content for American Indians. There's also something called ABC Stories and ABCD Stories. Yeah, there you go. But they all look the kind of same. So I think American-born confused Desi is the real first one.
Right.
So do check that out if
there you go. Little
if you think that appeals to you. I don't think it's for me, but
another little piece of trivia that I hadn't actually picked up on in Moon Knight, but apparently it happened in Moon Knight too, is that somewhere in the background of one of the scenes, there's like a QR code.
Yeah, so they
I didn't know where it's like,
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, apparently if you click on the, you know, if you scan the QR code, it leads you to an issue of Ms. Marvel.
So in the Moon Knight ones, as I recall, it's in like episode 2 or 3. It's in one of the museum scenes, and there's a QR code that's also reflected in the glass of a door. And if you scan the QR code that's on the screen, that takes you to, I think, Werewolf by Night 32. And then if you scan the mirror version, it takes you to Moon Knight #1, maybe, or something like that.
Okay.
So very cleverly done. It's an interesting area of interactivity that I haven't kind of tried.
Right.
It's too technical for me.
I mean, I just think it's like cool. It's like a little
cool.
hidden Easter egg. And they just know there's enough like not so Marvel fans that somebody would figure it out. You know?
Of course. I wonder actually what the kids in the Marvel universe, the MCU, like are they reading comics? What are the comics that are within the MCU? Do you know what I mean?
What
like
do
the
you mean?
meta.
Like what kids?
So in our world, we have Captain America comics and Batman comics and Spider-Man comics. But what are the comics that exist in the world? We know Batman and Superman exist in the MCU because they've talked about them in the Eternals. That's one thing we didn't talk about from a couple of weeks back. Actually, is they mentioned the Eternals. They mentioned Kingo in one of the Miss Marvel episodes.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah. So when Kamala and Cameron are at the cafe and they had that sort of awkward meet cute thing where her brother turns up, she talks about how much her mum loves Kingo.
Right.
So
funny. Yeah, of course.
He was, of course.
They're
like
talking about
major
Bollywood or whatever, and he was like a Bollywood star. That's they right. Hilarious.
So I wonder if we'll see some also other connection to the Eternals. But yeah, I was just wondering today, what are the comics in within the meta universe of the MCU? Like, what are they reading?
Right. Well, I don't know. I guess you could hypothesize because there are heroes in that world. They could be writing Captain America comics.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we've seen in things like Logan where they have X-Men comics, but they're kind of very
right,
more outrageous versions of what really happened according to Logan. Speaking of the X-Men, I mean, like I was sending you a message earlier this week about, you know, I picked up the 5-issue Clandestine series, which does lead into, you know, Excalibur make an appearance. I'm wondering if we will get Excalibur in this somewhere. And the reason I say that is because I think that would be a massive clash of cultures in terms of like this super ancient English magic kind of universe, Captain Britain, things like that. And then, you know, even like the warp smiths that you know,
turn up in,
around,
you know,
yeah,
and,
yeah, and also, how does that then fit in with a culture that the English kind of invaded and oppressed? Like, what would that be like rubbing up against each other? Would that be something they would tackle? I wonder. Would that be then?
Like, maybe not in this series. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe not in this series of Ms. Marvel, but perhaps if they did a second series, like, you know, because I think they've got a lot of threads to sort of tie together in 2 episodes to wrap everything up.
And also, this series has been surprisingly light on into MCU kind of play. Do you know what I mean? Despite the fact that he is a Marvel fan.
Right. I think, like, you know, the first episode kind of sets up a lot of, you know, of the fact that she's obsessed with the Avengers. She's obsessed with Captain Marvel. They all exist in her universe and they're her idols. But I think after that, it really becomes her story, appropriately so. You know, because this is an introduction to Kamala, you know. I think Moon Knight was also very light, if not like completely unconnected to the other MCU stuff, because it needed to introduce a character rather than, you know, just further the story of an established Marvel character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm eager to see what, of course, where we progress.
I think, you know, there's very, very good chance, you know, during the last episode, or like even in, you know, sort of a post-credits thing, there could you know, something could set up a connectedness to the Marvels, you know, which we know Kamala is going to be part of. We know that Carol and Monica Rambeau are all going to be together in the Marvels movie,
which keeps getting pushed back, and I wonder if there's, or has been pushed back to like 2023, and I wonder if that's because they're making room for some other stuff. I don't know, because I think they are changeable as much as they have a plan, and Feige has talked about, look, we're planned out until 2032, whatever it is, 2033. I think they are actually changeable to the whims of the fans.
Of the storytelling, and the fans, and like, you know, I think it's like, okay, even if they've got like, you know, some big ideas outlined to the point where they kind of know what films they need to create the story they want to tell. I think it is pliable, as you can kind of see, like, okay, Ms. Marvel, you know, or the Marvels, you know, has been pushed back, maybe because something now needs to happen first in order for that to make sense. You know, we've got a Thunderbolts that's going to be in production, you know, sort of in 2023 or by 2023, which there was an announcement this week that they've confirmed at least one member of the Thunderbolts, or one character who's going to appear in the Thunderbolts.
Please go for it.
It is Olga, what's her face from Black
Taskmaster.
Widow. Taskmaster, thank you. Like
Olga Kurylenko.
Drakovich. Dreykov. Thank you. That was going to drive me crazy. Olga Dreykov.
Olga Kurylenko is the actor. Okay. Oh, that's great. I love Olga Kurylenko. I'm really kind of keen to see more from that character anyway, and see how her kind of story progresses.
What's her first name in the Black Widow movie? Now that's just going to drive me crazy.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I can't remember. All right, whatever. Yeah,
I don't know if they name her.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do, and like it's like, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Taskmaster is going to be featuring in the Thunderbolts movie, which is like been a character that they've sort of like bandied around the name of, but not as strongly as some of the others.
Right. And I mean, there has been some shift. So a couple of interesting rumors have surfaced over the last week. One of which is that Andrew Garfield has signed on for more MCU movies.
Right. I've heard that too.
Right.
Which it sounds great to me.
Okay.
But is it going to be more MCU movies, or is it going to be more Spider-Man films? Because that's where
I don't know, because
specific. Like, obviously there's like still Sony's Spider-Man branch of things.
They talked about another Spider-Man movie with him. But they've also talked about, which they could make. It could be like, this is that universe, and this is what we're doing. We're doing that third Spider-Man movie we never got to do. Be good if they get back Felicia Hardy. I can't remember the name of the actor now. She's a terrific actor, but I can't remember her name.
Right.
Felicity Jones, I think.
Yeah, Felicity Jones. Yeah, that's right.
Because she got literally like one or two scenes in Amazing Spider-Man. So Dane DeHaan as well. Like,
oh yeah, I loved him. I actually thought he was such a great, Harry Osborn, Green Goblin.
Well, they seem to cut so many of his good moments from that movie, and that were in the trailer, and then just didn't surface in the movie. But one of the interesting things that has surfaced is apparently Secret Wars being the next big event.
Yeah. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, because it's something that you could do with the multiverse nature of things now.
Right.
You could do that quite easily. But I don't know. Like, I mean, could you do the Beyonders? Could the Beyonders be the big bads this time? I mean, I don't know. Funny enough, I am due to take a look at Secret Wars 1 and 2 again for another project that we're doing for the podcast and things.
Secret Wars is great. I love Secret Wars.
Well, it depends which one you. I mean, right? Because there is the original Marvel superhero Secret Wars from '84, which is widely regarded as the event that kind of begat all the others.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the way it was done. Then there's Secret Wars 2. But there's also Secret War, which was Bendis's sort of mini-series, which is a fascinating mini-series to deal with, that deals with sort of terrorism in the MCU and stuff like that, and is worth tracking down and reading. I kind of think it's still available. I can't remember.
I think, and you can find the issues easily enough. But then, of course, there's like the Hickman Secret War.
Yeah, which is
what brought all the multiverses together.
Yes. Sorry, totally. And that, I mean, I quite surprised myself by eventually reading that, which became a big joke at Orbital, because people kept asking me if I had read Secret Wars, which I hadn't. It's like, nope, haven't read it. And then eventually I did fucking read it, and it was great. But I only read the main series. I didn't bother with any of the tie-ins, because Hickman's Secret Wars gets a really bad rap, largely because it was the event that stopped every Marvel comic from coming out for 9 months.
Oh my god, yeah, I recall it was a lot, and the delays were ridiculous.
But the main series itself was
it's very good. Yeah, it's very good,
and does kind of cap off Hickman's big Marvel tenure. Really, like that was the end Well, I think didn't you have Secret Warriors, like his final kind of
Oh.
Secret Warriors series?
Well, I
came
mean,
after that?
obviously he did the X-Men.
Oh yeah, but I mean his first sort of big Marvel tenure.
Right, sure, yeah,
And
like
you
his,
can, I think you can,
his Avengers, all of that.
and you can kind of draw a straight line by all accounts from his Fantastic Four all the way to Secret Wars. Like everything does tie together. It was like his big kind of experimental project where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to fucking do this huge thing. And I think even the Ultimate stuff that he did apparently was so good. Marvel were like, oh, can you make this like the main series, please? Can you kind of bring this over into the Avengers? And although, guys, if you know anything about that, drop us a comment down in the box. So lots to happen. And like we got to talk about the end of the episode where we do experience not a vision this time, but we are transported back to Partition, back to the train, the final train leading out, and that puts us in a really interesting position because Kamala is not an observer anymore. She is an active participant in that time period. Where's that going to go? Like,
right. You know, is the Trail of Stars from Kamala or was it from Aisha?
I wonder if it's going to be that Kamala is the one that leads
her own
grandmother back to her father. Like, wouldn't that be a beautiful way to tie up those generations and have them meet across time? And hopefully we're going to see what finally happens to Aisha, because that remains a mystery. Where is Aisha? You know. So yeah, I mean, lots of stuff to kind of still play for. Sorry, Liz, but was there some more stuff you wanted to get to?
I think you know, like, no. It's. I mean, I think we've kind of hit the major points of the episode. You know, because right now we're really in the kind of like, you know, action heavy kind of territory of the series. Like, you know, they're kind of like, you know, putting a lot of plot stuff in place in this episode. You know, so I think next episode it'll be really interesting to see, you know, hopefully some more about Aisha, about the origins, again of the powers, and figure out how is Kamala going to get back to her timeline.
It's weird because it's the second show this year to deal with like as very specific plot points, people leaving their
reality
countries. No.
Okay, sorry.
Their countries that are being oppressed by a sort of superior force. On trains, on the last train, because I don't know if you watch Russian Doll, but the plot line of the second series of Russian Doll is very much concerned with that as an element, and it's just interesting how those things kind of shift, and those very specific things shift into the zeitgeist. And I'm kind of, I was thinking about that today when like rewatching the episode just before we did this. You know, how and why those things end up being, you know, the thing right now. And I don't know if it's like, you know, the real world stuff that's going on or whatever, but you know, I don't know. I'm just
okay. I thought you were going to draw a parallel to
no, not at all.
And like basically it would have been right around this time that, you know, we kind of like flip into, you know, sort of an alternate reality with Mark.
Sure. There's that, yeah. Which is probably much more relevant to the show itself. I like to go off on tangents, Liz. I'm sorry. I'm kind of curious to see what happens, and is it, you know, as you say, is it Kamala that's going to lead her own grandmother home? Like, does Kamala become Aisha? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there going to be that sort of thing?
Yeah, and like so it's also interesting to note that Cameron has been abandoned by his mother and the other clandestines.
So we get that exciting escape sequence that we didn't talk about. Sorry, that's my fault for just breezing through it.
Is he going to turn up and come to Kamala's aid? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, has he been recaptured? Like, we don't know. Like, we don't know. It's all up in the air. I wonder if they'll kind of save him now for the very final episode. And it's kind of interesting how the three prospective kind of boyfriends also represent the three cultural touch points of Kamala that she now has, and how that might play into things.
Right, of course.
I wonder if that's going to be like a kind of thing. And of course, Kamala is still a person who's got to find her own identity within that.
Right, for sure. In the comics, it's worth noting that Kareem ends up coming to New Jersey as an exchange student, and staying with the Khan family. So,
interesting.
So it could wind up that she's just got these three potential
Bruno getting friend zoned again by everyone.
So friend zoned.
Poor Bruno, man. I feel for that kid. Yeah. I really do. He's just being completely sidelined by everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't deserve it, man. Bruno deserves his shot.
Yeah. Wow.
I just want to talk briefly about the music this week. So the opening music, which I loved, is Summer Nights by Rajinder featuring Wise Child, and I really loved the opening music. In fact, I loved all the music in this.
It's been musically, it's been a great series, which we talked about a little last week. But it's just consistently great.
As was Moon Knight, in fact. And I do kind of keep wanting to check out. And then there's a piece of music called Arg by Talal Qurashi featuring Nasibo Lal. I hope I'm getting these names right. I'm probably not. I'm sorry. But that's all great stuff. But also the end music, which I was really taken with, because I wondered if that was something written for the show or a piece that they'd kind of found elsewhere. But that is the Miss Marvel suite from the Miss Marvel soundtrack by Laura Cartman, who's doing a great job of scoring this season. And just I'm really kind of loving that, like just all the music in the show. And I can see me kind of really getting on this and Spotifying the lot once the show's done and the album's out. It's worth looking at the Marvel Vivo. If no one's done that on YouTube, there is a Marvel Vivo that has where they put the full scores for the full albums anyway for each show on once they're done, and for each movie. I haven't caught up with it in a long time because I haven't been listening to a lot of film music lately, much to my own chagrin. Something I want to get back into. But do have a listen to some of that stuff because it's really good music. And I think Marvel music has improved in general over the last few years.
I think it's always been good. People kind of knock some of the soundtrack stuff for sounding kind of samey, but I think that is that's part of the brand. They have a sound.
The problem was Marvel was very much a victim of the spotting process, which is where filmmakers and composers will sit and pick where they want the music to go in a film, and they will not the spotting process, the temping process, because they will then sometimes fill in those scenes with music from other movies. And what happens is there's a tendency amongst the studios and amongst filmmakers to go, I really like that, make it like that.
Right.
And therefore you end up with a lot of samey stuff. But there's some great themes in the Marvel stuff. The Avengers theme is still amazing. It's
really, really distinct. The Black Panther theme.
Oh, yeah. I think once you start bringing on more experimental musicians like Ludwig Göransson for Black Panther, which is probably one of my favorite Marvel scores, and then you're really kind of popping, and it's just like you get some really good stuff. I'm big into my film scores, and
Winter Soldier has a really distinct sound.
Great stuff, yeah. Mm-hmm. I very much benefited from the Dark Knight, I think. Winter Soldier, like in terms of its soundscape and stuff like that. If you listen to those two back to back, you'll kind of get an idea of that. Yeah, so anything could happen as always. The MCU for the next episode. I will try and get a guest on for the final episode of this. Sorry, we haven't done very well for guests this series. Sorry, that's down to me. I've just been really busy. But I will try and get us a guest on for the last episode, and we'll see what happens. And hopefully that'll be a nice treat for you all. But thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. Liz, anything else you want to say about the show or?
Well, no, just like really enjoying the show. Can't wait for Thor: Love and Thunder next week. Counting down the moments until that. We've got a couple of bits of double duty coming up. So we will be doing Thor and the next episode of Miss Marvel back to back, I suspect. But they might release on different days, so just bear with us there. Because for scheduling wise, it helps if we can have a little bit of space between the shows to make sure that you guys get a chance to watch them all. I do want to say hello and thank you to all the new subscribers and to everyone tuning in and listening. And also, we might be popping up on as I've said last week, an episode of Let's See What's Out There with our friend Keith Isles for Obi-Wan, which is kind of be a series overview thing. So hopefully there'll be some time to do that. Hopefully we won't be doing all those on the same Friday. No.
We'll see what happens.
We will not.
It's an ongoing negotiation between myself, Keith, and Liz. I'm sure we'll find a way through it just there. But do check out Home Media Minefield. Do check out the Doctor Strange podcast with myself and Mr. Rob Dev, and do check out Rob's film reviews as well. And of course, do check out Liz's website and follow her on Twitter because there's some great stuff there. Liz absolutely loves comics and is probably the most knowledgeable person I know on modern comics. And I always really enjoy her insights with Marvel, especially because she knows loads of stuff that I don't know and don't look out for, and I'd be completely lost without her on this show every week. So, Liz, thank you for joining me once again and letting me ramble on about Miss Marvel.
Good times.
Yeah, well, I'm moderately good. Let's not make too much out of it.
I mean, you know.
I've
moderately good times. Yeah,
I've had better times down the pub. No, it is always a pleasure, and I hope it's a pleasure for you guys listening. Sorry, it's a bit more subdued this week. I'm just not feeling 100% at the moment, or even 50%. I feel like a bag of crap. So if you can avoid COVID, do avoid it. Don't recommend. But Liz, thank you as always for bringing your unique brand of I don't know, whatever it is you're doing to the show.
Enthusiasm.
That's it. But yeah, thanks guys. We'll catch you next week. Hopefully for Double Duty on Thor and Miss Marvel. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to get out of here now. You've had enough of us, and maybe we've had enough of you. I don't know. We haven't. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, follow the Twitter at The Comic Crush. We hit over 1,000 followers on the Twitter finally. Thank you very much for doing that. Thank you all for everyone who's followed. There was a real sort of influx of people over the last couple of days. So I really want to thank you for doing that. And follow us on Instagram at The Comic Crush. Follow Liz at Liz C. Jordan. You've got that just there. And also check out the website and the web store and the Patreon because that helps us keep going.